What's going on, golf fans? It's your boy Gsluke here with our round 3 live stream for the Pebble Beach Pro-Am. Gonna get you ready for all your prop and betting exposure tomorrow, and hopefully can build on the profitable day that we had for round 2 with the one slip hitting from yesterday's stream. Rasmus, my boy, ended up going over. Same thing with the Russell Henley. So hopefully you guys were able to take advantage yourselves and are ready to get back after it for tomorrow. But first off, I want to say hopefully you're having a great day. We got a little whiskey over here in the cup. It's been quite a while since we've done that here on stream. Tried to keep it a little bit more straight edge when I'm over there on the Ship It channel, but hey, I figured over here on my own, where if I make a fool of myself, it's just on my channel, I would figure to go out here and have some fun. So hopefully it's treating you nicely this night over here and you're ready to get after it for tomorrow. What's going on, Philly? Says Luke is on his grind and you're here for it. I wouldn't have it any other way. I love the PGA Tour. It's definitely a little bit of a late night grind over here on the West Coast, but you know, it gives us some prime time stream action. So I guess we shouldn't complain about it. Let's talk through our averages from round number 2, which I think are going to be pretty spot in line with round number 3. So it played 2 under par over there at Pebble Beach. Might play a hair harder as the wind is going to be a little bit more persistent, but maybe something like 1.5 under par is what we'd expect over there for tomorrow. And not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but that same wind we had for the second half of play is pretty much going to be there the entire time. But the reason why I say it's not going to be like a whole one-stroke under par difference is because of the moving day pin locations. They know that it's going to be a lot more difficult, and though you have the Pro-Am ending over the first few days, don't be surprised if they set it up pretty soft once again. So personally, I'm expecting around a -1 to -1.5 average, which is definitely a hair harder than what you had for round 2, but not really all that much different when it's all said and done. The birdie average will probably stay around 4.5 per round, where I think really the main difference is going to come is over here with the bogey average, which will be at least 2.5 over there for round 3, if not getting closer to 2.6 or 2.7 per round. So that should give you a pretty good idea of what I'm expecting from the golf course. Maybe a hair harder across the board, but really nothing that's changing all that much. So if we take a look at the average from the morning to the afternoon, the reason I say that is in the first half of tee times, it played 2.4 over. The second half that played an extra hour to maybe even 2 hours in those windy conditions still played to a -1.8 average. And while they played the first 6 to maybe 7 holes without a whole lot of wind in the PM wave, it's still only played 1.8 under par. So that's why I don't think it's going to be like a drastic change with the scoring average, because even the late guys on Pebble today still had a pretty decent scoring average. And just to do the full deep dive on the weather, I'll bring up all 5 models at the same time. But for Saturday, it looks windy on all but 2 of them. So most of them are in that 14 to 15 mile an hour sustained. This GFS at the top, ECM, and then NEM and HRRR at the bottom are all calling for spicy conditions. The Icon and Meteor Blue are a little bit calmer, which I would say those are the least reliable out of the bunch. So I'm not all that worried about the Icon and Meteor Blue, but you also have a few that are calling for a lot of rain. I think that's the one real X factor that we're going to have in the forecast is when this rain ends up subsiding. You can see the HRRR has it subsiding around 10 a.m., which means your later starters, your last few tee times, are going to have next to no rain to deal with. So I would say with the soft golf course, that's also going to mitigate some of those winds. So I just said it might play like a 1.5 under par, 1 stroke under. I may even adjust that to 1.5, 2 under, considering all the rain that the golf course is going to get. It's the first time in a while that we've had rain during a golf tournament. And I'll remind you guys, anytime we get any sort of precipitation, it makes the golf course a lot softer and in turn, a much better scoring out there as well. So I don't think it's going to improve all that much because the winds are significant. But if it was close to that same 2 under par scoring average, I wouldn't be all that surprised. Now, the other factor we haven't gone through would be the pin locations, which as of going live, they didn't have those up quite yet. So maybe towards the latter half of this live stream, we can go through some of those pin locations, but I'm assuming they're going to be the usual moving day setup. There might be a few par 3s that are moved up in terms of their tee boxes to account for the wind conditions that you're going to see. And then I think you're going to get some moving day pins and bowls. You always see that around the PGA Tour, and I don't think that's going to be the exception this week either. So I haven't looked through Prize Picks or Underdog at all, but I do kind of have an idea of a few props I want to look at. But now is the time. If you have any props, any matchups, any bets whatsoever that you guys want to talk about down in chat, go ahead and let me know. And even if you don't, say hi if you're getting in here to the live stream. We'd love to have you. And I've got to get working over here on the whiskey. Which, speaking of, I brought the bottle just to share, give a little side on what we're doing. It is an Eagle Rare 10-year that we're sipping on today. So not quite the top shelf stuff, but definitely better than mid-tier, if you guys know what I'm saying. Next time out, by the way, for round 4, I guess I'll say this right now. If they end up having a massive day from our live stream bets, I'll bring out the blends tomorrow. I've got an aged blends that's sitting in the kitchen right now. It was actually a Christmas gift from my mom. Actually, my birthday's just before Christmas. I think it was a birthday gift that I got from her. That's like $1,000 bottle of whiskey. So we'll crack that one open. Haven't even opened it yet. If we have a big day tonight. What's going on, DePeach? What's going on, Philly? So you have a DFS question, which, by the way, I'm totally fine with. I did do a live stream over there on Ship It Nation for my full thoughts, but I'll touch on any specific questions if you guys weren't able to make it over there. So is there a certain wave I like for DraftKings? Haven't been here in a while. Do I just do DK stuff through Patreon? So good question, Max. So I've been doing those over there on the Ship It Nation YouTube. So as I said, if you want to catch that full stream, you can check it out over there. But I still have my Patreon page for all my Showdown stuff too. So I've got my projections posted over there. They're separate from the Ship It. I just do the actual Showdown content over there on their YouTube channel. But for Showdown tomorrow, there's not really a wave that you're looking at. It's 3 sums off of both tees. So there's only going to be about a 2-hour spread of the tee times. And the conditions are pretty flat. So just to go back to the weather before we talk through these boards, I mean, it's windy the entire day. So no matter when you're teeing off, I think you're getting the same kind of conditions. The one added caveat I gave my Patreon members, which I didn't talk about on live stream because I didn't notice it at that point, to be quite frank with you guys, is that the last couple tee times, so your leaders, your last like 3-4 groups might not have any rain to contend with because they're teeing off around like 11:50 to 11 a.m. local time. You know, the rain, at least in this HRRR model, is supposed to stop around 9-10 a.m. local, which means they could have perfect conditions, at least for tomorrow, right? It's still going to be windy out there the entire day, but they could have no rain to contend with, which if there's going to be an advantage, I guess it would be those later starters. But the unfortunate part for DFS, you know, we're not going to go too far into the weeds because it's a prop stream here, is that they're higher round, that you're going to have to play those guys at higher ownership, at least the guys towards the top end of the board. You do have the guys that just hardly made the cut that will also be going off towards the end. The guys, I shouldn't say the cut, right? The guys that are in just last place, they're the first 2 rounds at this no cut event, are also potentially playable. So you might want to look at that. And yeah, the Ship It Nation YouTube channel is where we're doing them for this year. It's a sponsorship that I have with them, right? Just to be fully transparent about it. And they wanted it on their YouTube so that their subscribers could see it a little bit easier. So we're doing that one over there, keeping it all DFS stuff. And then this is props and betting. And then we could talk some DFS too, if you have questions like you just mentioned in chat. What's going on, Mason? Thoughts on JT and Rory for under 70.5 strokes? So perfect segue. I appreciate it, Mason. Getting me back on track here, by the way. I think some unders and strokes could be in play. So if you heard my take on the golf course, I think it's going to play like 1.5, 2 strokes under because of that rain softening it up. So if you have guys at 70.5 like those two, and I haven't even gone through the whole board yet, I'm going to be a buyer. Like Rory's at 70.5. You have JT down here at 70.5 as well. I haven't looked at their sportsbook lines or anything, but you know, you give me some plus EV value. I mean, look at that. Rory, you have that plus EV value. Let's see what we have with Justin Thomas. Justin Thomas is minus 120 out there for the under. Yeah, I think it makes a whole lot of sense. The first one that really stuck out to me would have been a Scotty Scheffler. He's a really good wind player, and you've seen it in major championship conditions, right? He normally doesn't have that big of an issue. I don't know if Rory's my favorite play. I know that Justin wasn't juiced nearly as much, but kind of like Scotty Scheffler, he's known as a really good wind player. So just looking at the board, like 71.5. For somebody like Hovland, even seems attackable. 72.5, if we can find somebody who's really ball striking it. And hell, I could be a buyer there. They're projecting this board, like they're expecting around an even par scoring average. And Pebble Beach just doesn't play that difficult. Like I know it's going to be windy tomorrow, but you know, 28 mile an hour wind gusts, those matter. But is it going to be like that the entire day? Like I have a hard time thinking with a storm heading through that it's going to be a solid 28 the entire day. If I had to guess, that when that storm comes through, it's probably going to be closer to like that 28, for like maybe the first half an hour after, but you always hear about the calm after the storm, right? When big storms come through, like a lot of times it's, drops down in intensity afterwards. I mean, if that happens, I don't want to throw it out there. I don't think this is really going to happen. I wouldn't say it's likely, but it is within the range of outcomes. It could actually play easier than what you had in round 2, which I know is like a crazy thing to say, but if it's calmer than what they're calling for after this rain, and you have the softer golf course, which we're going to get, it already rained there, and it's going to rain more overnight and into the morning. I don't know. I really like some of these unders on strokes, especially because they're projecting this board crazy. I mean, 4.5 birdies, right? That's what I think the birdie average is going to be. I don't think the birdie average is going to really move all that much. You have guys like Rory at 4.5. You have Justin Thomas down here at 4.5 birdies. I really like this board, and this is the first time I'm seeing it. I wasn't able to go through it before the live stream just because I was busy with Showdown stuff and getting that done for my Patreon members, which speaking of, I'll actually show you guys the Patreon page. I had to do this at some point, right? I gotta plug my channel at some point here, guys. Here's what the bottom end of the Showdown sheet looks like. So it's colorful. All these tags over here mean a certain thing. I'm actually going to show you guys what they mean if I can scroll far enough right to not show you all the projections. We've got wind players in the pool, ball strikers, putting regressions, so guys that are due to make a few more putts, high upside. So those are kind of just the GPP flyers that I'm taking that have a wide range of outcomes. And then some course history guys. So like your Gary Woodlands, your Nick Taylors, your Jordan Spieths that have had a really good track record around here. This is how I'm making my 150 max pool. There's no one in my player pool that is just in there for no reason, right? Every single guy that I'm using in my 150 max pool, which I think is like 33 players, has one of these 5 tags. And that's what I'll say about like any tout that you're listening to. If you're just getting a straight player pool without any sort of information on why they like them, I think it's absolute trash. I would not subscribe to it. Makes absolutely no sense in my opinion, because why the hell would you just randomly tail someone's exposure? Like, I know that there's some winning players out there. Like, it makes sense in certain cases. I'm not completely trashing every tout site out there, but at least for me, when I'm going out there and betting something, I don't tail something on Twitter unless someone gives me the reasoning for it, right? I'm not just going to see something that says like, take Bill's money line. That's it, right? The tweet, like you're not going to follow that sort of bet. You want to know what the hell's going through your tout's mind, right? So this is something I probably should have started a lot earlier. It does take a lot of extra time to do, but I've found that my members find it very helpful that I give them the reasoning behind why I get to my plays. So I don't give like a full like written out description for my entire 150 max pool, but I do give you guys these little tags to give you some of that reasoning. So can't show you guys the entire sheet. You're going to have to join the Patreon to check it all out, but that's the idea. And you did get to see the bottom end of the sheet there towards the beginning. It looks a whole lot like that. So again, 33 players in my player pool is what I'm working with over there for Showdown. But let's get back to this board. So to go through some of these projections, I'm really thinking that it's priced a little bit too high. You saw that Rory McIlroy was potentially a plus EV value. Just to go over here to Underdog, I guess we'll go through the board quickly. I want to see if there's any real discrepancies from site to site. Let me refresh it, as they may have added a few more props to the board. I've got to say, it is straight whiskey. I don't even have any ice in there. It's normally, if you guys know anything about whiskey, having ice in there dilutes it a little bit, which is kind of nice. Normally, I'd be making all sort of faces, especially because I haven't drinking any whiskey in quite some time, but it is damn smooth, so I can't complain. Let's see. I enjoy the Patreon and the slip today paid for the next 6 months. I mean, dude, you're just giving me all the information I need down there in chat, right? I don't even have to try and sell it to you guys down there in chat. I'm pretty humble about my Patreon, and the reason I say that, I mean, I talk about it all the time. I think it's a great tool. It pays for itself on the prop side in like a couple days. So if you're not a part of the prop tier, what the hell are you waiting for? And there's going to be down days. Like, for full transparency, round 1, we lost 2 units. Like, that's going to happen, right? But over the long term, especially over like a 2-3 event sample size, you're going to have paid for your membership between that. Even if you're like a $10 unit guy, like we're going to be up probably 1.5, 2 units on average at least every couple events. That's at the very least. Like, that's my baseline. I mean, if $10 unit size, that more than pays for the Patreon. That's more than double it right there. So thank you for that down there. And yeah, the Peach as well. Missed the props, but love taking underdog money. Yeah, make sure you catch them this time around, the Peach. And hey, you're in the live streams. You're at the best spot to do it. And Underdog, that's who we took the money from today. They actually, and I'm glad you said that, they limited one of my other accounts, actually. They had a whole wave of limits that they put in overnight over here in Underdog. So I know we have the board up over here, but we're probably going to focus on prize picks just out of spite, because fuck Underdog. They're a bitch-ass lines maker. That's an absolute pussy. I know that's a lot of swear words in the same sentence, but you can tell I don't like them over there because they limit winning bettors. And it wasn't just me. A lot of my Patreon members ended up getting limited because they're winning bettors over the last few months. So I guess that's another advertisement out there for the Patreon is, when there's like a bunch of people in a Patreon that are all getting limited at the same time, there's been a whole lot of winning going on recently. So another advertisement, which, by the way, if you're one of those people out there, just get your significant other to sign up, get your best friend to sign up for Underdog, and you can give them some guidance, right? Wink, wink on what to do. And then you can do it that way. And again, I'm not implying anything, of course not, wink, wink. But yeah, you might want to get them signed up over there for those sites. If you guys get what I'm saying. Which, by the way, I've gone, I think, my whole lineage to go out there and do so. So I've definitely been through the ringer on that end before. Let's go through these odds. So what I'm looking for over here are some unders that are juiced, just so I can kind of get an idea of where some of this value is going to be. So we already know that Rory was like minus 130 for the under. Doesn't look like a whole lot of these are juiced under, but you can see Keegan Bradley at 71.5. He is minus 130. Let's go over here to Fanduel. That's the thing. They format these odds like absolute AIDS over here. It's ridiculous if you ask me. And I see the Peach says that escalated quickly. Yeah, dude, you get some alcohol in my system, I start swearing like a sailor. I have to put the mute button on a little bit, right, when I'm here on these live streams. But hey, I've got to say, give me literally one cup of whiskey or even a couple sips like we've had, that filter goes bye-bye. So hey, that's why we don't do this on other channels, right? Like I said, we can have a little bit more fun. We can stretch the boundary a little bit over here in my channel. I'm not going to do that on other people's channels though, right? That wouldn't be fair to their brand and whatnot. So let's see what they have for Keegan. I'm hoping they have a lineup for Keegan, because his shots gains profile also looked pretty good. Let me see if he's over here in Underdog as well. So yeah, they have him at 71.5 on both sites. The reason why I say he looks decent from the shots gained perspective is in round 2, he gained off the tee, he gained on approach, and then he lost with the putter, which, losing with the putter is kind of a regular thing for Keegan Bradley, but you like to see the fact that he was at least hitting the ball well. So I like that is sustainable from day to day for the most part. And hell, even if he's just a neutral putter, which would be a pretty decent day for Keegan, and he does have the upside to go out there and gain strokes on the greens, then you're looking at a super low round. And we're not asking him to do a whole bunch here, right? I mean, it's 71.5 line. You're asking him to shoot 1 under par. If I think the scoring average is going to be, modestly 1 to 1.5 under, I think realistically might even be 1.5 to 2 strokes under par. I think that this is a, pretty decent lean to go out there and mix in. So let's keep that one in there. I'm drawn to the Scotty Scheffler line, which I know he didn't have anything posted over here on Draftkings the last time I checked. And over here on the FanDuel side, I believe he was like minus 120 for his under, which we'll double check it. So yeah, look at this. He's minus 120 for the under. Draftkings usually has a little bit more juice on their props, especially round score props compared to what you have over there in FanDuel. So I know it's terrible to say this because we don't actually have the data point, but Draftkings would probably have a minus 130, at least based on like the track record over the last 6 or so months. So minus 130 on Keegan. Let's call it minus 120, minus 130 over here on Scotty Scheffler. If I'm right about the conditions lean, this could be an absolute money spot. Now, the only thing really holding me back from wanting to enter this kind of slip right away would be the pin locations. And we don't quite have those yet, or at least we didn't have them as of going live. I'm going to bring up the PGA Tour.com's Twitter real quick and see what we have to work with, because if it's moving day pins, if they look soft, if it looks like they're going to move up some tee boxes, then, we could really be cooking when it comes to ROI, but it doesn't look like they have anything posted right now. So let me see if DraftKings has it on their shot tracker. Right? I've mentioned that in the past, that sometimes if you click on round 3 and then you click on a player, you can, you can actually see what it looks like, but I don't know. Doesn't look like it's working. Like when I click a player, it's not even showing the course. That was for round 1, so that's not correct. We need this to be round 3. We need it to let us, okay, this might be it. So that looks like a different pin. Okay, so this might be it then. So over here on the bottom right, you guys can see this shot tracker app. This is how we're going to look at the pin locations. And I've back tested this a bunch in the past. These actually will be the pin locations. They first get sent over to these sports books before they actually post them over there on Twitter. So hole number 1, it's in the middle back. And it doesn't really look like it's in the back, but I can tell you that these like animated views kind of under exaggerate where they're moving a lot of these pins. This middle back, though, you have a backstop that you can work the ball off of. That's actually going to take the ball closer to this pin. And you have a lot of room to work with as well. So it's going to be playing into the wind tomorrow. I think that's why they're giving them an easy pin location. And if you miss in these bunkers, you're going to have enough room to get up and down. So it's tougher conditions wise because you're playing into the wind, but I don't think it's the end of the world either. Let's see. Yeah, there's hole number 2. Let's go to the next one. So hole 2 is the par 5. It's going to be here in the front. So rounds 1 and 2, it was there towards the middle back. It was actually tucked pretty close to this bunker. This front pin location, which will be downwind over here for round number 3, is I think going to be easier because not only is it an easier chip from around the green, it's a shorter shot too, and it's downwind. So I think you're going to see a lot of eagles at hole number 2. Hole 3 is, I think, back into the wind. I'm not 100% sure when it comes to the wind direction. I've never played here before. This back right pin is a little bit tricky, I would say. It was over here on the left side for the first few rounds. It is tucked over this bunker. That's really the main concern that I have, but it's the broad side of the green. So even if you miss to the right, you're going to have some room to get up and down, and you have all the room in the world to the left to hit the ball, which is where a vast majority of players are going to aim. Hole 4 is a scoreable par 4. It's a similar pin location to rounds 1 and 2. Rounds 1 and 2 was on this right side, but closer to the middle of the green. So that pin location, I would argue, is actually harder than the ones that you're going to have for tomorrow because it was closer to a slope at the front of the screen. And in the back, you have a lot more room to work with. Hole 5 is 195 yards. So that means they're shortening this up. So I didn't know that they accounted for the tee boxes over here, but this pin location on the front side is a lot easier than the one that was in the back right for rounds 1 and 2. The issue with this pin, or I guess this hole in general, I should say, is that it's directly back into the breeze and is going to be an absolute brute. I mean, I know it's only like 195, it says on the scorecard there, but it's probably going to play closer to 220 because it's into that 15-mile-an-hour wind. Let's go to the par 5 next, which I would also say is a very straightforward pin location. Reason for that is it's towards the middle, just like it was for days 1 and 2. Days 1 and 2 was over here on the left side, there in the middle of the green. Now it's over here on the right side, which if you're going to miss this green, especially into the wind, like it'll be for tomorrow, a lot of these people are going to miss over here to the front right of the green. And take a look at the scatter chart for rounds 1 and 2. Like 70% of the balls would be in this circle that I'm making with my cursor right there. So from that pin location, it is a very straightforward up and down. So that's why I think it'll play easier than the first few days. The wind might make it slightly harder, but it's an easier pin location, if that makes sense. Hole number 7 is going to have a side wind from this left side, and it's going to be slightly into from over here on the right with the wind forecast that we have, which makes this pin location kind of hard because it is tucked over here in the left, but it's only going to play about 105 yards. So I would still expect to see a lot of birdies there, but you're going to get people that are missing short with it being into the wind. Maybe if you have too high of a ball flight, right, it'll balloon up there and you won't get it the whole way to the green. And then you're going to have people that hit it left and try and have it just like coast over to the pin location that maybe have the wind die down and then missing that left bunker. So I can tell you as a golfer, as somebody that's played competitive golf, this pin location looks easy, right? If you're like looking at it from the overhead view, but it's actually harder than what you had for the first few days, which is going to be the case, right? The Pro-Am's over, so they're going to test the players in a few spots, but they know the wind forecast too, right? So they're not going to completely overdo it. Hole number 8 is a really long approach shot. So even though it's only 428, It's like 180 yards in because of the fact that you have to lay up off the tee. And you can see here it's in this left side, which gives you a lot of green to work with. It's not like you have to carry it over this bunker, which can be dicey, especially when it plays into the wind like it will for tomorrow. But because it's on the left, it is a much easier up and down with most of your misses, and it does give you a lot more room to work with. So it's an easier pin location, but it's going to be a tough hole because it's into the wind. Hole 9 is also into the wind, and this is going to be a left pin location. It's a long hole, and because they have the pin at a really tough spot, this left cove is the hardest pin that you have at 9. It really makes me think that they're going to shorten this hole. Like, there's no way that they're going to have them hit 200-yard approaches in when you have the hardest pin location at this course, especially when it's going to play even longer with the wind direction that they're calling for. So if I was a betting man, which I am, you guys know that, right? I mean, fuck, I have a YouTube channel going over betting stuff. They're probably going to make this hole a little bit shorter. And by a little bit shorter, it's probably just like one tee box that they're moving it up. So they've got it the whole way back here right now. It might be this tee box or maybe even the one over the cart path that they end up using. If we go to the back 9 now, hole number 10 is a downhill into the wind par 4. It's an easy pin location though, right? You have all this green to work with. And unless you go long here, and because it's into the wind, I don't think you're going to see that all that often. It's I don't want to say an easy up and down, but you're going to have a whole lot of green to work with between you and the hole. 11 is a scoreable par 4. This one's going to play side wind a little bit from the right side is where the wind is going to be coming in. And it's an easy pin location. This front left is a lot easier than what you had for the first few days, which was tucked just over that bunker. Hole number 12 is a much easier pin location than rounds 1 and 2. Rounds 1 and 2 was in the middle back. Now it's on this front left corner, and they played it to its full distance for days 1 and 2. So they might do it again because this is an easy pin, right? Unlike hole number 9, where it's like a super hard pin. It's like, wow, they've got to make this short or else it's going to be absolute carnage. Because this is an easier pin location, they may still play it from the tips, but if they move it up, it would be an easier hole. 13 is 445. This looks like a tougher pin over here in the back right corner. Yeah, tougher than what you had for the first few days. 14 is going to be here in the back center, which is awfully close to where it was for days 1 and 2. Days 1 and 2, it was a little bit closer to where my cursor is right now. And I don't think it's going to be all that much different than what you had for the first few days. Worth noting that because it's downwind, I think it's going to play easier. 15 is also downwind. The pin location is also towards the center of the screen. So I think you're going to see a ton of birdies because you're going to have a wedge downwind there and plenty of room to get it close. Hole 16 is tougher than rounds 1 and 2. This left side pin where it was for days 1 and 2 was over here where my cursor is. It's an easier look through these trees. You can see with these trees, with this left pin, by the way, most people are playing from like right here. So, you know, we can't like orient it to make it look better. But when it's a pin over here on the left side, it's pretty much a straight field goal between the two trees. When it's over here to this side of the green, you kind of have to hit a fade to hit it close. So I would say that one's a little bit harder, but that one's also downwind and should be pretty gettable because it's downwind. Hole 17 is going to be tough. You're going to have a side wind from the left side, and also it's that back left pin location. Now, because it's into the wind and you have that side wind action working as well, this would be a candidate to be moved up as well. So it wouldn't surprise me if here at hole 17, they shorten it up a tee box or two because of how difficult that pin is. And the reason I say that is the PGA Tour is extremely soft, especially when you're at a signature event like this. Like, they never take it hard on players. And really, where I ended up finding this out the most was at the Players Championship, which I take very close to home because I'm from here in Florida. I've been there every year the last 7 years, right? It's a pilgrimage of mine. Every single season, I'll be there this year, of course, at that course, which is like the biggest PGA Tour event that we have the entire year. They move up tee boxes when it gets windy. They make drivable par 4s at the fucking Players Championship. They'll definitely do it Pebble, is I guess the point. And then finally, hole 18 is in this back center quadrant of the green. I would say it's about the same as days 1 and 2, because days 1 and 2, it was here towards the middle left, which now that it's in the center, if you miss left and right, you're going to have more room to work with. It is a slightly longer hole, but because it's going to play downwind there on the predominant breeze, it's not that much of an issue, right? I think most people are going to be able to get it near the green in 2. And if they do, it's a pretty easy up and down. I don't want to say like it's not super easy if you're in this front bunker, but if you miss in the left side, it's pretty straightforward. And if you miss in this right bunker here, up about pin high, it's also not the worst up and down. So to get back to our averages, kind of figure this all out, it looks like a moving day setup. It also looks like they're going to move up some T boxes. If they end up moving up those T boxes, I could see it playing -2 again, which I know sounded crazy before, but these pin locations, which I wish PGA Tour comms would just end up posting them. We do have them over there on the Draftkings site because they look pretty soft. I think 1.5 under par is a pretty good guess for the field. So to kind of translate that to the props that we were looking at, right, Keegan Bradley there at 71.5, he could lose about a half stroke to the field, and he's probably going to cover this kind of line. With his ball striking stats, I feel pretty good about that, especially because he's -130 under. Is Scotty Scheffler there at 69.5 strokes? He's going to have to gain like 1.5 strokes to the field. His baseline, by the way, is 2.5, 3 strokes gained to the field. So because he's probably -130 on DraftKings, hard to say, right? Because we don't actually have that line to compare to. I feel pretty good about that spot as well. So for our prize pick slip, that's going to be what we take. And I know with those windy conditions, it seems a little bit backwards, but these projections have been adjusted for that. And you're talking about Scotty Scheffler, who's one of the better wind players out there. And then Keegan Bradley, who of course is one of the more experienced players that we have out there on the PGA Tour as well. So of course, guys, for all the different pieces of exposure that I'm entering, you guys can check those out over there on my Patreon page. But I think with how soft the pricing is, that's going to be a lot of those sort of spots. And just to kind of go over here to the birdie board, like a Justin Thomas over on birdies, or maybe even like a Rory at 4.5 birdies, like I think makes a lot of sense. And we got a whole bunch of guys down here at 3.5, which I think is well below the projected average for tomorrow. And there's some slappies for the most part. Like it's your Lee Hodges, your Harbins, right? It's not your elite tier players that you have down here at 3.5. But there might be a few spots that we can take for an over even at that kind of number. So I guess just to point that out, let's see what we have for odds over here in Caesars. I wasn't able to check out the birdie board before we went live here, but I have a feeling Rory might be juiced over. That's why I want to check this out. So as I suspected, Rory is -130 for the over, and let's find Justin Thomas. He's -120 there for the over. Like, if you're going to play a Rory McIlroy prop, that's probably the one I prefer. He was also -130 for the strokes prop, but just with the birdie average, at least for me projecting for like 4.25 to 4.5 per round, Rory's an elite tier birdie maker, particularly at a course that's this short for a par 72. I mean, it feels like a no-brainer there at 4.5 birdies. So there's going to be a lot of props that I'm likely getting to. We'll look over here on Underdog to see if there's any major discrepancies, but that's what I'm thinking so far for our exposure. Insert one of us GFF. Yeah, I got you. Yeah, right. Man of the people, as they say. What's going on, golf? What do I think the winning score will be given the wind? It's a really tough one to narrow down. So winning score right now is -14. I'm going to say like -20. Like, I think there's going to be enough scoring out there where somebody that's like -10 to -12 probably shoots -8 over the next few days, which might sound surprising, but I think it's going to be set up really easy. Like these PGA Tour guys are super soft. Novak under 72.5 being a good wind player, decent wind player, but terrible shots gained metrics. So just to kind of show you what I'm talking about, in round 2, he gained nearly 4.5 strokes, actually over 4.5 strokes with his short game. He's not that type of player, right? He's normally a ball striking guy at heart. The fact that he gained a bunch around the green is very surprising. And he's also an up and down putter. So I get it because of the wind narrative, but I'm a little bit worried about the shots gained. Yeah, Lucas Glover at 3.5 birdies. He was one of the guys I was looking at. Eckroat, by the way, I feel a lot better about, just to show you why, right? He's got to shoot even par to cover that. And he gained a bunch of strokes on approach. Now, he did gain a bunch out there with the putter too, but holy shit. I like what you guys are doing over there. So that Eckroat prop, by the way, that really piques my interest because shooting even par, I think could be losing 2 strokes to the field, which I don't know. This is making me slightly second guess my course read here, but based on the pin locations and the rain they're getting, I mean, what? Yeah, I think it's complete 1.5, 2 under par. Like I'll stand on business with that. Like I think at worst it plays like 1 under par, right? Like that's honestly where I have like the floor for tomorrow because of the rain that we're getting. Austin Eckroat can lose a stroke to the field and still cover this. So rather than this 3.5 birdie line, which I know we were looking at before, which I still think that's value over there with Lucas Glover. He's also at 72.5 strokes, which in general, like Eric Cole's at 72.5. Let's look at who else is at that number because, dude, shooting even par at this golf course is not rocket science. Like there are enough birdie looks out there where, I mean, you could still make 3-4 bogeys and shoot even par. I mean, it almost seems too good to be true. Like I said, it makes me kind of second guess my process a little bit, but hey, I've been doing this a long time, right? This is like my 5th year doing props full time for every single round here on YouTube. If I'm right about this, and this is what I want to say about it, it's one of the bigger edges that we've had all year, right? Because these birdie lines should probably be an entire birdie higher. These strokes lines should be like 1.5 strokes lower in most cases. I don't know. I like what we're seeing. Knapp is 73 on Underdog, so he'd have to shoot +2 to go over. Jeez Louise. What is he on Prize Picks? Let's see. Is he even posted over here? Say he's at 73 on both sites. That's wild. And let's take a look at Hoagie's numbers. I think he was decent numbers-wise. Yeah, okay. I guess in round 2 is a little bit better in round 1, where he gained 3 strokes on approach. Maybe we'll do a second slip here. We'll go with these two. I don't know. My gut, my intuition tells me that those are really good plays. So we're going to take these two as well. Eckroat, good wind player, won the Cognizant Classic when it was pretty windy down here in South Florida. Tom Hoagie, he won this event as well when it was a little bit harder. So 72.5 strokes. They both have to shoot even par. I don't think we have lines to compare to on here, but just to try and find some lower tier players, like Billy Horschel is at 71.5 and he's juiced a little bit over, but like, he's that same tier of player, right? And he's at 71.5 strokes. You'd have to think that like an Eckroat to Tom Hoagie are at worst 72.5 on a lot of these books and probably about even money, and probably 72.5 and juiced under would be my guess for those sort of players. So that'll be the second slip that we're going with. Again, guys, Underdog, we're kind of going to ignore just because I can't really enter that much shit over there until I get my account fixed, another one set up essentially over there on the Underdog side. But yeah, these are slips that I'll be entering over here on Prize Picks for sure. Let's see. Hodge, yeah, I saw that one, 73.5. I'll be deep diving that one after we get off live stream here. You definitely thought with the weather we'd be fading. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough weather, but I mean, look at the course average today, right? The second half of the guys on Pebble still played 1.7 under par. You've got an easy setup. You got rain softening up the golf course. You gotta look at the pricing, right? If it would have been the same kind of pricing as we had for days 1 and 2, you probably would be fading guys, right? Because they'd have to shoot -4, -5 to cover. But a completely different situation when it's guys shooting even par, right? And they're covering for us. Clark under 72. I like the thought of that. The only reason I say that it's kind of sketchy is he's not in the best form right now, right? So he's the kind of player that you're going to have to hope kind of keeps it together more than most rounds. And I'm not 100% sure that he's going to do that with the form that we've seen. Just to show you what I'm talking about with the form, he round 1 was atrocious, lost 5 strokes on approach. Round 2, he also lost 2 strokes on approach. So he kind of looks a little bit broken. Did I not like Cole under 72.5? I did, actually. That was one of the ones I was looking at. There's a bunch there at 72.5 I'm probably going to play, but I got to keep some behind the paywall, right? That's why I didn't want to go through all of them. But yeah, I liked it because he gained a bunch on approach. So yeah, I know you're part of the Patreon page. You'll probably end up seeing it. There's a good chance I'm going to play that one. And English 72.5, his form's a little bit more sketchy. So that's, I guess, the one reason why I wouldn't get to that. And just to go over our 2-ball process, our matchup bets over here from round number 3, I'm not going to go over them here on live stream as I got to get out of here. I have a few friends coming over for some festivities here this evening. But if we go through the approach numbers, just like round number 2, guys, I'm looking for some of these poppers. So over here on Bet the Number, which by the way is the sponsor of this live stream, this is the tool you want if you're going out there and doing matchups for tomorrow, because not only do you have the shots gained metrics, which you can go through here, which other sites will have that, they have one of the best matchup tools in all the business. So just to kind of go through one together, I guess we'll do that here on the live stream. It's 3 sums tomorrow instead of 2 sums. So it's going to be 3 balls as opposed to 2 balls. But like Eric Cole would be a really good target when it comes to looking at some of those bets. He gained over 2 strokes in approach. He lost 1.6 with the putter. He's normally a much better putter than what we saw for today. So depending on who he's matched up with, right? I don't know that off the top of my head. You pop them in over here on the matchup tab, and it gives you a real easy way to go out there and compare those players. So it'll be more process-based over here for the live stream in terms of looking for some of those bets. I'm looking for those ball striking poppers going up against guys that maybe luck sacked it out there with their putting in around the green. So that's what I'm looking for out there in my process. But that's all I've got over here for the live stream. Best of luck with all of your exposure for tomorrow. Check out the Patreon page for all the pieces of exposure that I'm getting to, whether it's on Prize Picks, Underdog, or over there with any matchup bets. I'll be posting them over there for all my Patreon members. And let's get on after it out there for tomorrow.